So, good morning, students. Today we are going to talk about the last phylum of the animal kingdom, that is the phylum. Can you tell me which phylum is that? We have talked about all the non-chordates. So, we are going to talk about, yes, the phylum Chordata. So, as you have already discussed, there is certain features that are unique again to this particular phylum, and that is why it is going to be completely different in certain features compared to that of the non-chordates. And there is a primary feature that is actually distinguishing this entire group of the non-chordates from the entire group of chordates. Can anybody tell me what is that unique feature that is going to distinguish both?
Notochord.
The presence, yes, yes, good. So it is the presence or the absence of the notochord that is actually differentiating these two groups. Now, on which side are we going to have which area? It is dorsal or ventral? The notochord, yes.
Dorsal, sir.
Good. So it is on the dorsal side that we get the notochord, and the presence or absence of the notochord actually going to differentiate the chordates from the non-chordates. Now, again, another thing that you should keep in mind is the fact that the notochord may be present throughout the body, the entire body of the organism, entire dorsal surface of the organism, or it might be present in certain area, certain part of the, maybe anterior region only of the organism. Or another thing is the organism might have the notochord throughout its lifespan, or it might be present only at certain point, certain phase of its lifespan. So it all depends. It varies from organism to organism. So in other words, if an organism is going to exhibit the notochord in dorsal area, maybe in the anterior region or the entire body, and if it is going to exhibit it at any point of its life cycle, at the earlier phase or at a later phase, larval stage or adult stage, it will be considered as a chordate. So with that being said, let's start. I will just share the screen with you guys and then we'll talk about it. So let me go full screen. Let me go for the writing part. Change the color to red. Okay. So here we're going to talk about the phylum chordates, and the first thing that you have to keep in mind is actually the presence or absence of the notochord. So it includes all the animals which are going to have the notochord, which is a dorsal tubular nerve cord. So on the dorsal side, if you see, this is a typical representation of an organism which is chordate, and in that what you see, this is the notochord, right? This particular area is the notochord. Right, as you can see, this is the notochord, and we are going to have in this organism on the dorsal side completely. Now, they also have the pharyngeal gill slits. You can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actually are shown. So, pharyngeal gill slits. Along with that, there is also the nerve cord. Now, in certain organisms, this nerve cord is going to be replaced by another structure that we will anyway talk about. So, notochord is a flexible rod located in the mid dorsal line between what other two structures? Between the alimentary canal and the nerve cord of the embryo. So if you can see on the second image here, now we are going to have this entire structure. Let me put this. This is our pharynx, the mouth opening, and this is going to the pharyngeal gill slits part. Now this opens into alimentary canal, stomach, intestine, and the anus. So this is our alimentary canal. Now on the other side, what we have is the dorsal hollow nerve cord. That is this particular part. This is the nerve cord, and between these two structures, that is the alimentary canal and the dorsal hollow nerve cord, we are going to have the structure that is we are going to talk about the notochord, right? It is going to be on the dorsal area between these two structures, right? That is a notochord that we are going to have. Now, another unique feature most of the organisms which are belonging to this particular phylum exhibit is going to be the post-anal tail, right? That is again another point that you have to keep in mind. Now, what do you mean by post-anal tail? That means you're going to have the anus, and beyond the anus, beyond the anal opening, there is a tail, and that is simply what is called post-anal tail. Now, when we are going to compare the traits of chordates and non-chordates, there are 5 features that actually all the chordates share. What are those? Notochord is found in the embryonic stage. whereas in case of non-chordates, they are absent. Now, the central nerve system is dorsal and hollow and single. They are present. But in this case, they are ventral, solid, and typically double. If you have seen earlier cases that we used to have a nerve ring, ganglion ring, and that used to go like this, right? They used to run like this, and throughout the body, this structures, right? And they are present, and they will connect with the ganglion at the anterior region. Now, we do have the pharyngeal gill slits in the chordates, but in this case, they are absent. The heart is present in the chordates, they are on the ventral side, but in this case, if they are present in case of non-chordates, they are going to be on the dorsal side. Now, post-anal tail, that is going to be present, right? Post-anal part, that is tail, is present, and they are absent in case of the non-chordates. These things anyway we just talked about, again a different representation of the same conditions that we are talking about the chordates here. So let's move forward to a very simple classification of the phylum chordates. Now, as we said, this is a big phylum, and in these we are going to have 3 subphylum. Now, first one is called the subphylum Urochordata, also known as the Tunicata. Now we are going to have the subphylum Cephalochordata, and then we are going to have the subphylum Vertebrata. Now, what you can keep in mind that the Urochordates, that is the tunicate, and Cephalochordate, together they are part of something called, you already know about this, the Protochordata, right? So the Protochordata is going to be, so in general what we can do is we can separate, we can divide the chordates into protochordates and vertebrates, right? These are the 2 subphylum, and the protochordate can further be divided into Urochordates or Tunicata and the Cephalochordates. Now let us learn about this. Now, when we talk about the phylum Chordata and subphylum Urochordata, now the first thing that you have to understand here is basically Urochordate and Cephalochordate is the difference between the notochord, presence of the notochord. Now, in this case, Urochordates, the notochord is present only in the larval form and in the tail region only, no other place. Larval form and the tail region. And here the body is covered with by test, which is made up of tunicin component, and they're exclusively marine. They're hermaphrodites, both the male and female structures, sex organs are on the same organism. And examples we see, you have the Ascidias, Salpa, Doliolum, and you can see they are very different compared to the other organisms that you have seen till now, right? And this particular image is from your NCERT textbook, right? This is the SCD actually. Now, when we talk about the Cephalochordate, now cephalo, right, this particular part refers to the anterior head region, right? Cephalotypally refers to the head region. So the simple thing that you can keep in mind here is the notochord is actually present also in the head region. So in other words, notochord is present from the head to the tail region. In the previous case, it is present only in the tail region in the larval form, but here it is persistent throughout the life. From the beginning till the organism dies, the notochord are present, and they're present all around from the anterior region all the way to the posterior region. So you can see the notochord being present all around, right? This is the notochord, all around it is present, and they're persistent. That means they will be present throughout the organism. Their fish-like body, again exclusively marine, and here the sexes are separate. In the previous case, we have hermaphrodite condition. Okay, now the branchiostoma, amphioxus, and lancet, right? It is the amphioxus or lancet or branchiostoma, they belong here. Now, yesterday, I don't remember the name of the student. Somebody is asking about the last class. They're talking about herdmania. Now, remember, the herdmania actually belongs to the urochordates. That one thing keep in mind. Now, let us talk about the vertebrata, subphylum Vertebrata or the vertebrates. Now, what are the few common features? Let us see that, and then we will move forward. Now, here there are notochord that are present during the embryonic period, of course, and the notochord is replaced by a cartilaginous or bony vertebral column, right? This is something you see only in case of the vertebrates. What? Vertebral column. Any chordate, remember, any chordate which is going to have a vertebral column is going to be a vertebrate, right? But If they're not going to have, they're simply the chordate. So in other words, what we can say is all the vertebrates are chordates, right? But all the chordates cannot be vertebrate. Now this is a typical question that you have been actually listening and you probably might be knowing from the class 9. So all the vertebrates are chordates, but all the chordates are not vertebrate, because it is only the chordate that is going to be converting the notochord from the embryonic stage to a cartilaginous or bony vertebral column. We will call them as the vertebrates and not the others. So here the heart is going to be muscular and they're going to be ventral in nature. There have going to be presence of kidney for the excretion and for maintaining the osmotic concentration, that is also referred to the osmoregulation. And there are paired appendages. Appendages here mean the fins or limbs, in our case the hands and the legs, right? So let's talk about the classification here. The phylum subphylum vertebrata again can be divided into two groups, that is called agnatha, that is jawless animals, and gnathostomata, that are going to be the jaw. Jaw, you understand, that is going to hold the teeth here. So when we talk about agnatha, again there is a single class under the group, and that is called the cyclostomata. We'll talk about that in a minute. And when we talk about the gnathostomata, we can still divide this into two different groups. What are the superclasses here? Superclasses are going to be Pisces, that is going to have the fins instead of the limbs, and you're going to have the superclass Tetrapoda, that means they're going to have bare limbs, 4 limbs actually, 4 limbs. That's why the name Tetrapoda. Now, when we are going to have the Pisces, again there are two classes. One is called Chondrosthyces, and the second one is called the Ostrosthyces. Now, the main difference here is that endoskeleton. Now, can anybody tell me what is an endoskeleton? Anyone can tell me what is an endoskeleton, dear students? Hello, you are able to hear? Are you able to hear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any idea what is an endoskeleton? If you do not, just tell yes. No, I will just try to answer that. Do you all know or not? Yes or no? Okay, I think probably you are not aware of that. So endoskeleton are the structure which is going to give support to the, okay, let me, I think somebody is going to answer. Yeah. Okay, Nilima is telling it is an internal skeleton. Yes, Nilima, you are absolutely right. So these are the structure that are going to help the organism to get some support, to get the structure as it is. So what we are trying to say here, endoskeleton here can be made up of two components, cartilage and the bone. So in this case, it is made up of cartilage, and osteocytes is made up of bone, right? Chondrosthyces, you know, chondrocytes, and osteocytes. Based on that, cartilage and bone are the endoskeletons. That is one major reason for dividing the entire Pisces into these two different classes. Now, when we come to the superclass Tetrapoda, again there are 4 different classes here: the amphibia, reptilia, aves, and mammalia. And I think I need not explain too much about this because I'm pretty sure that you all are aware of this. But still, anyway, let us move on to understand these. So when we talk about the class Cyclostomata, right, the first class, all are ectoparasites on some fishes, right? They're all parasites. They're going to live on the fish. As you can see, this is one example. As you can see, this is an Cyclostomata member, and as you can see, it is actually living on the fish as a parasite. Ectoparasite means they're going to live on the, right? They are present on the surface of host. They're not going to get entry. Instead, they are present on the host surface, and they're going to actually derive the nutrients out of it. And here they're elongated without scales and paired fins. 6 to 15 pairs of gill slits. They're present for respiration. If you can see on down here, right? This area I'm talking about. So here you can see there are gill slits, and there is a circular mouth, right? As you can see up here, even here you can see. Now these are essential. Even here you can see these are essential to actually attach, as you can see on this part. So to attach to the host organism and to hold on, you know, they're going to have this circular mouth, and there is going to be no jaw in this case, because they don't need to chew anything, they don't need to eat anything, they just need to derive the nutrition, derive the digested food from the host. So they don't require a the jaw or any sort of teeth to digest the food. So here the cartilaginous cranium is present, the brain is protected, and the vertebral column is also cartilaginous and they are well protected. Circulatory system is closed type and they're marine, but they migrate to fresh water for the reproduction spawning process. After spawning, they die, and the larvae after metamorphosis return to the ocean. Right, and some of the examples, if you see, this is going to be the petromyzon, also known as the lamprey. Okay, lamprey or petromyzon. And also you have the magazine or the hagfish. Again, its name is hagfish, it is not a fish. Again, a typical question. Remember, all of this fish, you are listening in different groups. In a Canada, you have learned about certain fish. They are not fish, but they will be combined along with the members of the Pisces, and they'll ask you which of these are not the fish. That again you have to focus on. So let's talk about the superclass Pisces, and as we talked about, there are Chondrosthysis cartilaginous fish, and we have the bony fish or the Ostisthysis. Now the Chondrosthysis, they are typically marine, they are not fresh animal, but when we talk about Ostisthysis, we have marine as well as freshwater. We do consume some of them. And streamlined body, both of them. Cartilaginous endoskeleton, but here it is bony endoskeleton. Notochord is persistent, present throughout its life. Now, in case of Chondrosthysis, you have a ventral mouth and a powerful jaw, but in case of Ostisthysis, there is a terminal mouth, as you can see here. And here it is the ventral mouth. It is somewhere here, right? It is a mouth, and here you're going to have the opening somewhere. You can see here, right? Thoda niche hota hai. And here it is going to be on the terminal at the end. And the gill slits, right? Here we are going to see the gill slits. Now these are going to help in the process of respiration. So they help in the respiration process. But here they are without covering, without any sort of covering. Okay, and anyway, the gill slits are called the operculum. Another thing that you have to keep in mind, it is called operculum. So we do have operculum here also, but again, here it is actually, they are actually covered. So these are covered. Operculum or the gill covering is actually there. So that's why we can call it here, the gills are there, and we have a gill covering called the operculum here. Again, you would have seen many of you when typical fish that we get in the market, they do have an operculum because they are bony fishes, freshwater bony fishes. Now the scales, right? The entire fish body is covered with the scales. So the scales are different in this case. In the first case, we have placoid scales, and in the second one, it is called the cycloid or ctenoid scales. Again, you can see a little bit about how the placoid scales are present. As you can see, these are the placoid scales, and the cycloid scale, as you can see on the side, or it is the ctenoid scales. They are typically a little bit of smooth compared to the placoid scales. Now teeth are also modified, placoid scales which are backwardly directed. There is no air bladder, so they need to swim continuously. Again, it's an important difference. So they need to swim continuously to avoid sinking. But here, in case of the Ostisthysis, there are air bladder. Now this air bladder is going to provide buoyancy, and that is going to allow the fish to remain floating on the water surface even when they are not swimming actively without spending energy. So you can see here, there is an air bladder in the organism here, and that is also known as the swim bladder, and that is enable the organism, it can remain floating on the water even without moving or movement. That's again a big benefit and advantage of the Ostisthysis over the Chondrosthysis. So these are some of the advanced feature that we are talking about, right? And here both of them are cold-blooded animals, and again both are going to have two chambered heart, one auricle and one ventricle. That is, there is mixing of gases, mixing of, right, O2 and CO2. There is no separate chamber. Now here sexes are separate, both are hermaphrodites, right? And internal fertilization, and many are oviparous. And here the development is going to be direct in case of the Ostisthysis. Now you can see here condensed examples. You have the dog space or the scoliodon. Then you have the great white shark. You have the sawfish, stingray. Again, it's a poisonous stingray. You would have heard about that. Then you have learned about the electric organ for bearing fish. That is electric ray. Some of you would have seen even in the movies. Then you have the ostracistes. In that we have the marine fish like the exocetus or the flying fish. Then hippocampus or the seahorse. Then you have the freshwater, that is the rohu, catla or the magur. And you have the aquarium fishes, that is the fighting fish or betta. And you have the petrophyllum or the angel fish. Again, there are many more examples. You can even name them if you know the scientific name. And again, we already talked about this. I'm going to skip that part. Next, we are coming to the tetrapoda amphibians. Again, these are all going to be the common thing that you already know about. So quickly, I'm going to run through. So here, they're aquatic and terrestrial both, and the body is going to divide into head and the trunk region. So some of them are going to have the tail, as you can see here, and most of them are going to have a moist skin without any sort of scales, and they're going to help in the process of what you call respiration also in certain case. The most of them have two paired limbs, right? Forelimb and the hind limb, and tympanum, right? Tympanum is going to be present. If you can see in this area, which is present behind the eye, this is called the tympanum, and this is going to represent the ear in this case, going to help in the auditory function. And now it is going to be three-chambered. Fish had two chamber. Here it is going to be three-chambered, two auricles and one ventricle. Again, it's an advantage over the previous case. So here there is a partial mixing of gases, better than the fishes. There is a partial mixing of gases. Now they are poikilotherms or the cold-blooded. Now you are going to be having the complete alimentary canal, well developed excretory system, right? And there is going to be a reproductive tract that opens into cochlea, which opens to the exterior. And respiration is by gills in the larva, lungs, or the skin. And sexes are separate, external fertilization and oviparous, that is egg-laying animal. Development is going to be internal. You would have learned about tadpole, and you have learned about some process called retrogressive metamorphosis, right? You have learned about this in class 8 also, metamorphosis process, how the tadpole develops into the frog. And again, you have the toad, frog, the tree frog, salamander, right? And you have the limbless amphibia. Many of these are there. You can give examples of, right? We do have the next one called the reptilia. In this case, we talk about the snake, alligator, right? And in this dry and cornified skin, epidermal scales are present. In the previous group, we did not have that. And we do have the snake and lizard releasing the skin, that is called the skin cast. Basically, their scale are released, called the skin cast. You would have seen that even in the nature. Now, if present, there are going to be two paired links. Not in all the cases, some of them have. Crawling is a typical locomotion mode. Tympanum again is going to be present. Three-chambered heart, but there is an exception, which is going to be the crocodile, which is going to have the four-chambered heart, two auricle and two ventricle. Poikilotherms and well-developed alimentary canal, respiration by lungs, internal fertilization, oviparous, and direct development, though larval form here. That is again a advantage or development over the previous group. Now turtle, then tortoise, the tree lizard, wall lizard, garden lizard, right? Crocodile, alligators, again snake. All of these are examples of these particular group. Next, we have the cobra, then another snake called krait, viper, right? Python. All of these are again examples of the same. Now we're coming to the next class, that is called the class aves or birds. Now again, you all know there are going to be feathers and back. Forelimbs are modified into the wings, and there are going to be dry skin without any sort of gland, except the sebaceous gland, all the glands present at the base of the tail. Again, we also have the oil gland, so this is again an advanced feature. Now, hind limbs have the scales and are modified for walking, swimming, or clasping the tree branches. Long, hollow, and pneumatic bone. This is again a very important feature. You must write when you're asked about this feature phylum. So here, the pneumatic bones are actually hollow bones, which are going to help in reduction in the weight. As you can see here, this is the bone cross section, and as you can see, these are the empty spaces. You can see these are all the empty spaces, and they are going to help in reduction in the weight of the organism. So tympanum again is going to represent the ears. Now four-chambered heart. Now these are going to be homeotherms or the warm-blooded animals for the first time, and digestive tract has additional chamber called the crop, and these are going to happen the process of digestion. Double respiration, air sac contains connected to the lung. Okay. Now, internal fertilization, oviparous, and the development is going to be direct egg laying, and there is going to be direct development without any sort of what do you call larval form. Now again, in homeothermus, there is another thing that is given, that these are the animals which are going to have the ability to maintain the constant body temperature irrespective of what is going on the outside. So typically what happens is we maintain a constant temperature. Whether the outside condition is really hot or cold, we have mechanisms in our body that is going to allow us to have the regular body temperature. And that is what is going to be called the warm-blooded animals. And the aves are those, and remaining all are going to be the cold-blooded animals. That difference you have to keep in mind. Now we have the crow example, all the birds, crow, pigeon, parrot, ostrich, right, the pavo, penguins. You can give any examples of birds as you like in this case. Now we're coming to the last group called the class Mammalia, and the main distinguishing feature is the presence of the mammary gland or the milk producing gland to nourish the young ones. Now the skin is going to be present with the hair and the two pairs of limbs, of course, for multiple purposes, as you can see. And there is going to be presence of external ear, or that is called the pinna, as you can see here, right? All of them have the external ear or the pinna. Now there are four-chambered heart, double circulation, and they're again warm-blooded animal, or the homeotherms. And they're going to have well-developed alimentary canal. Dentation is heterodont. What are these? We'll talk about thecodont and diphyodont. We'll talk about basically what is talked about is the presence of two types of teeth, milk teeth and the permanent teeth, right? When we are kids, the milk teeth actually get replaced with the permanent teeth. So that's basically the heterodont and diphyodont, basically the condition that we are talking about. Respiration is by lungs, sexes are separate, and internal fertilization. Viviparous, except exceptions are there, Echidna and Platypus, there are still the oviparous or egg-laying mammals, and development is direct without any sort of larval form. So as you can see, examples Echidna and Platypus are there, right? Platypus example, kangaroo, flying fox, monkey, right? You can give any of these examples as you like: camel, rat, dog, cat, right? Elephant. A number of mammals are there. Whichever example you like, you can give. Common dolphin, blue whale, horse, tiger, lion. All of these are again present. So with this, we are coming to an end of this particular discussion of this particular topic. Okay, just 1 second. Yeah. So as I was talking about, this is very the last part that we are talking about today was actually not very difficult, I guess. And only the first part that I was talking about, the protochordate, the urochordate and the cephalochordate, that might be slightly of a problem because that might be having few new terms and the presence of the examples basically. But again, it's not very difficult compared to the other groups. Main difference is the presence of the notochord. And the first get urochordates, you're going to have it in the larval form only in the posterior part, but in the cephalochordate it is present throughout, it is persistent throughout its life cycle, and it is present throughout the body. So that's the main difference. And again, the main difference of the phylum vertebrata, vertebrata, that you have to have a look at, right? The two super classes and the other groups that we talked about, Agnatha and Gastrostomata. With that, I think the chapter is going to be easy, and right now we are completing the chapter for this particular part. Now, if you have any sort of doubts, you can ask.